I'm Becky Dowd, and this is The Journey to Salvation. Join me as we walk alongside real people and hear the unique journeys that led them to faith in Jesus. Today, my guest is Steve Pierce. Hello, Steve.
Hello. How are you doing, Becky?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good.
Steve, you and I know each other from a long time ago back in school, but I really got to know you a little bit more probably in the last year through the Celebrate Recovery meetings here held in Wynn and in Colt. And so I'm anxious just to hear your story. I haven't really heard your story, your journey to salvation. So can you just start out by giving us a little bit of information of you growing up?
I can. I started out life, I was born in Wynn, in the hospital here in Wynn, but I was carried home to Bandale, a small country home out on a farm, no running water and nothing like that, so it was a little different back then. Most of my life, up to 6 years old, I didn't even know what a church was. We didn't go to church, and wasn't a whole lot of prayer or nothing going on in home, so around 6 years old, I started my first addiction. I tell everybody that it was my first sin that I remembered, and my first addiction, and that was we stole a pack of cigarettes. Me and my nephew stole a pack of cigarettes and started smoking at 6 years old.
Wow.
So, but let me back up just a little bit. My parents was older when I was born. I was born to a family that already had 5 kids, and I was 10 years later coming along. So it was kind of, I don't know, I guess I was told most of my life that I was a mistake, and not by my parents or nothing like that, but I mean by other kids and things like that.
Just because of the age gap.
The age gap. See, my nephew, the one I was talking about, we stole that pack of cigarettes. He was a year older than me. I was his uncle, but he was he was a year older, and he had a sister that was a couple months older. So that was my oldest sister's kids. So they was more like brothers and sisters than they were my nephew and niece, But anyway, we stole that pack of cigarettes and we started smoking, and I guess I was around 6 years old. He was around 7 at that time, and at 7 years old, we moved to Wynn, from Bandale to Wynn, and it was so much easier at that time to smoke because you could take a quarter in a machine, pull a lever, and you had a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
So I kept on doing that, and different things went on, and the more people that you run around with, the more friends that you get, the more you get into, And then I got into drinking. We started drinking at a young age because they'd have parties or whatever, or his house or whatever, and we'd sneak and grab somebody's beer. They'd walked off and left it, or drank. Next thing you know, we was drinking, and just kept getting more and more. That I don't know really how to say it, but I got to where I drank all the time, just more and more, and then I got into smoking weed.
And what age were you during this time when you started drinking?
When I started drinking, I was probably just around 8 or 9 years old, still young.
Wow. And
hadn't really hadn't started going to church anywhere or doing anything like that, or anything.
Did you know what you were doing was probably not right?
Oh, I did. I knew it wasn't right, but I guess what really happened with me was I finally started going to a vacation Bible school a little bit, once a year, something like that. And I got to know a little bit more about Jesus and dying on the cross and stuff like that, but still never got to know him. And later on in life, I met a girl, and I started dating her. And I found out real quick that her mom was big into church, and she wanted if you're going to see her, you had to go to church to see her, more or less. And so I started going to church quite a bit with her and going to different functions and things that they was having. We lived just down the road from Union Avenue Baptist Church at that time, is west of town.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kept going there, and And we kind of tell a joke every once in a while, which is really ain't a joke, but Pastor Biddle there at the church there, he used to preach a sermon almost every time that I ended up in church about a long-haired boy. And I told him I got to looking around, I'm the only long-haired boy sitting around there, so I knew you had to be talking about me. But anyway, we dated for a long time there, and everything was going pretty good. But the more I got into drugs and drinking, and the more she started, stepping away. So we got to a certain point in life there to where she just had about all she could stand of it, I guess. So she walked away from me. So kind of got heartbroken and got to the point to one night I decided to commit suicide. So I got in my car and I sat on the railroad tracks there for a good while and decided that it was time. So I floorboarded the car about 110 miles an hour. I snatched the steering wheel to the right and I went to flipping and flopping through the air. And when the car landed, there wasn't no glass left in it and wasn't a straight spot on the body nowhere. And all four tires was knocked out from under it, didn't have a tire wheel on it. When I stepped out of an open door. The door was wide open. And I started to walk, thought I was going to walk home. Got in the cornfield and got lost. Couldn't find my way out. And I remember looking up to the sky and it looked like the stars was just right at the top of the corn. Like I could reach up there and touch it, which I couldn't. But I finally messed around there for hours, I guess it was, and I ended up out in the gravel road. I finally found my way to the gravel road and fell out in the middle of the road. Wasn't doing too well at that time. And
were you disappointed that you were still alive? Because you were trying to end your life.
I don't really think so, because I remember I seen car lights coming towards me, and I thought, oh my goodness, these people probably messed up worse than I am, so I'm thinking, they probably can run over me. They ain't going to see me or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I guess my attitude had changed at that point, but the guys pulled up, didn't have no reason for being there. They couldn't tell me, why they was there or anything else, and they picked me up, and it was going to carry me to the hospital, and I told them, I said, no, don't carry me to the hospital. I said, just take me home. I just live back down here, and I'll go home, and I'll go from there. Well, they got me in the car, and they turned around and started back, and they passed where my car was at, and they seen it, and they said, oh, my God. I said, you're lucky to be alive, So God must have been with you, And one of them asked me, he said, do you know Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior? I said, no, I don't. He said, well, would you like to? And at that time, I said, no, I don't. So anyway, they carried me on to my house and let me out. They made sure I made it in, and my brother, he come to the door, and he let me in. I went through and, trying to avoid everybody. Went through and fell on my bed, and I screamed out. I had broken ribs and all kinds of stuff, at that point. So they got me up and carried me to the doctor. And my doctor is your dad, Mr. Birch, was at that time. And they had me in there, and the police come in, and they was shoving me around and giving me a hard time. And because I had the bad reputation, at that time. And
how old are you at this point?
At that point, I was around 20, I think.
Okay. Somewhere
around 20. And Dr. Birch come in, and he seen him pushing me around, and he got mad, and he told him to get out, Mm-hmm. They said, well, we want a blood test because we're going to get him for a DUI. And he said, no, you're not getting nothing. All you need to do is get out and leave him alone. So before you mess around and hurt him, said he's got broke ribs, you're going to, going to hurt something, punch her lung or something like that. So anyway, he saved me again from getting another DUI. That's something else. I got like 4 DUIs during that time, that period, up until I was 21, I guess. Stayed in trouble all the time for drinking. I had a credit in most of the liquor stores in Wynn. I'd pay off. When I got paid Friday or whatever, I'd pay my bills. But somebody said, well, you're not supposed to. I said, I know we wasn't supposed to have, but I did. I mean. So at 15, I think I already had bleeding ulcers and stuff, from drinking so much. But anyway, life went on, and I got my wife now got married to somebody else. And I dated several different people, but I just never felt like I fell in love with anybody else. And she was the only girl that I feel like I ever loved. And I went out with a couple of buddies or a buddy, and we had met a couple of girls, and we stayed with them that night and messed around with them. And next morning, one of them called me and wanted to know when I was getting married. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. She said, well, you said that me and you was going to get married. So I said, well, I don't know about all this. And next, that girl that was with her called me, and she told me, she said, well, what the deal is with that, Steve says she is pregnant, and she's looking for a husband and a daddy for her baby. She said, but if you're not really interested, I'd like to go out with you. I said, well, we have to see what happens, A couple of days later, my wife now, where she was married to somebody else, she got a divorce, and we started dating again. And I guess God had this planned the whole time, because through her is the only way I knew him at all anyway. And
now, was this the girl from high school?
Yeah, the girl that I met in high school, or started in junior high, I think, something like that. But anyway, we ended up getting married and had a little boy. Named him Adam, and I was still drinking. I told her when I got married, I said, well, I'll quit doing the drugs, but I'm still going to drink, And she wasn't okay with it, but she was, to a certain point. And I was at home quite a bit at night with him, because she was working at Hayes at that time. She worked mostly at nights. And so, I don't know, I guess I started having a lot of dreams. And in that dream, there was angels kept coming to me, and they kept telling me that I need to change my ways, need to change my life. Time for me to grow up, more or less, And one of the main angels in that deal was her mother. She had a redheaded mother, and I told her that was my redheaded angel. She always got on to me for I'd cuss or something. She slapped me in the mouth and tell me shut up, and she kept me pretty well on line. But she come to me one night in that dream, and she told me, she said, Steve, it's time for you to grow up. Said, you got a family now, you got a wife, and you got a son, and it's time for you to grow up and be a man. And she said, but not just any man. She said, you need to grow up and be a man of God. And so I got thinking about that, and it went on for several weeks. And I finally told my wife, I said, well, she had been going to East Baptist up there and I told her, I said, well, tell that preacher come up here and talk to me. So I guess she had talked to him, and I don't know whether they made a date or what. I don't remember, but I remember I was sitting there one afternoon, and he come and knocked on the door, and he come in, and he started talking to me, and I remember the conviction so strong, and I remember when I went to my knees to look, do the prayer and everything, I looked down, and I remember seeing the beer bottle sitting on the end table. And I went ahead and gave my prayer and everything, and then when I got up, I was able to walk away from that beer bottle, pick that beer bottle and pour it out, and every other drop of liquor I had in the house that I didn't need it no more. It's like God, he took the want and the need away at one time,
Because you'd been drinking a lot of years.
I've been drinking a lot of years at that time. Well, I was 24 at that time when I finally met the Lord. Was 24 years old, and we started going to church at East Baptist. I got baptized there, and I found out that I had a lot of friends. Once I got into that church, older friends, it was like big brothers, and big sisters, you know, and even father figures that was in that church. And I really got into it. I mean, we done a lot of good stuff together. We went to visitation people, and Spring River, and done canoe trips and hunting trips, fishing trips. I mean, it's just completely different. So I didn't have no trouble with going back to the alcohol or the drugs, but I was still smoking them cigarettes. I stand out in front of a church, and I'd smoke a cigarette with somebody else and never think nothing about it, you know. And I thought about it a lot of times since I've quit, and then I smell how bad they stink or whatever. And I tell somebody, you know, my mom and dad knew that I was smoking way before I ever confessed I was, you know. I believe the worst part of my journey was to have to throw them cigarettes down and to, you know, walk away from them. I mean, I smoked them things for 53 years. You know, I was 59 years old before I ever quit.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Thanks to God and me figuring out that I could give it to him, I've been over 6 years now. So,
so how has God used you since I guess you gave your life to him at 24?
Yeah, I did at 24. I spent 20 years walking away from God. I walked away from God. I walked away from church.
Was that right after? What age were you when that happened?
Probably around 45, something like that.
Was there something that led to that?
Kind of, I used an excuse. I used something for excuse, and that was during the time that I was at the church, the pastor that was there when I first went there, he had left and went to another church. And we got another one, and he done a lot of preaching on different things and adultery and things, and couldn't find out he got caught, and they got rid of him or whatever. But, you know, it was kind of like I was starting to see that I couldn't put my faith in man, you know, how that goes. Well, he ended up getting fired from being a preacher there, and they got another one, and some things went on with him too, so he ended up leaving, and me and my wife, we decided that maybe we need to leave there and go somewhere else, so we did. We ended up going to the Wynn Baptist, which was a bigger church at the time. A lot of people there, and 3 different services going on, so next thing I know, it was real easy for me to slip out, and nobody even noticed I was gone, so I kind of slipped out of going to church, and like I said, I didn't go for like 20 years. And a couple of years ago, I run into an old friend on Facebook, and we got to talking, and I got to watching him. He kept saying something about his little big brother, and I kept thinking, what in the world is he talking about? I said, I think I know his whole family, but apparently I didn't. He had another brother I didn't know about, and come find out it's Brian Frame. So I got to watching Brian on his Facebook thing where he showed him preaching, and I thought, man, I'm going to go hear this guy, you know. And so I got up one Sunday, and I was going to get ready, and my wife got gone before I could go, and didn't know where to go or where it was at, so I didn't go. And next Sunday I was up, and I was ready. I was going to make sure she didn't get off without me, so I told her, I said, I'm going to go to church with you. And she said, looked at me kind of funny. I think she like to passed out because I hadn't been there so long, you know. And I went. I felt at home as soon as I walked in the door. I mean, and I think God had this all planned the whole time. Well, I know he did, because he started a recovery program shortly after I became a member there at the church. And
this is at Ridgewood.
At Ridgewood Baptist.
Yeah.
And they started a recovery group there called Luke 15, you know, and that's the story kind of is where God left the 99 to come after the one. I kind of felt like I was the one, you know. And let me back up a little bit. Before I'd done that, I'd had cancer. I lost my mom to cancer. I lost a brother, and then another brother and my dad, all to cancer. My brother died at 54. At 54, I had cancer. So, and I don't know, I felt like I wasn't the person that I was supposed to be at that time, and I got to a point in my life that I just didn't want to live anymore. So I was going to commit suicide, and I had a 9mm stuck to my head and fixing to pull the trigger. I was at home alone. Mm-hmm. Good Lord opened the front door, and all my grandkids come running in. And I heard them, so I put the gun away, and one of the little granddaughters come running down the hall, and she knocked on the door and opened the door, and she said, "Papa, what are you doing?" I really didn't have no answer for her, or the answer I could tell her. So she jumped up in my lap, and she gave me a big hug, and she said, "I love you, Papa." And she run back down the hall. Then I heard another one come, and then she came, and she gave me a big hug, and she said, "I love you, Papa." And she walked on about 3 times. Then three of them granddaughters come in, and they all told me they loved me and walked back out. My grandson, he come in, and he said, "Papa," I said, "You think you taking me out, let me shoot my BB gun?" I said, "We got a competition coming up in 4-H," and he said, "Maybe you can let me practice a little bit." And that kind of hit me hard, I'm thinking, well, if I'd done what I was going to do, he probably never would have picked up another gun, So I kind of got my priorities a little bit straight at that time, but it seems like when I finally went into that Ridgewood Baptist Church, it's really when God started dealing with me, and he started showing me that he had plans for me, more like to be part of a recovery group.
Because at 54, you kind of felt like your life was maybe over because of the cancer?
I think it was. I mean, I was I knew I couldn't do what I used to could do. Things that had changed. That I didn't feel like I was the man I used to be, or I could be anymore.
Well, and you didn't feel like God was using you at that time because of where you were.
I know he wasn't using me. I mean, I wasn't letting him use me, at that time.
Yeah.
So I started, like I said, they started with Luke 15, and I started going there. And the next thing I knew, I thought, I'm going to go to the rest of these. So I started going to the rest of them. And
of the Celebrate Recovery meetings?
All the ones I could go to. And I finally met Doug, and he started going with me to some of them. He had lost his driver's license, and he couldn't drive at the time, so he was going with me, and I kind of felt like we was, hitting them pretty heavy. And he was having to because he had to get his papers signed. I was going because, I don't know, I guess because God wanted me there. That's the way I look at it. We started going to several of them, and then one night at Finding Hope in Bandale, they was talking, the preacher and then was talking, they come by me and they said, Doug said, "Doesn't right there make a good one right there?" And Howard said, "Well, I asked him." So they asked me to come out to Living Waters and look around out there and see what I thought and see if I'd, want to help with that. So I did, and feel like God told me so that's where he wanted me at the time, So
Living Waters is an addiction recovery program.
Recovery program for men.
Similar to the Harbor that we have here.
Right, it sure is. And I think it holds like 12 men, and it seemed like that I done real good with that. I mean, I could go in and sit down and talk to the guys, and I had the experience with most everything that they've been through, I've been through, a long time back. But that's another amazing thing that God, he might have waited, I had 41 years in, or 39 years, I think, at that time, before he put me in that situation, just because he knew I could handle it then, maybe. I kind of wondered a couple of times when I first started it whether I really should be involved in standing there with somebody smoking cigarettes or whatever. Why would God put me there? But he put me there for a reason, so I could tell them there was a way out. Because, I'm living proof that God can do, miracles, you know.
Yeah, because that means a lot to those guys that are going through those same things.
Right.
Is to have someone that's done the same thing, been the same places, and they've come out on the other side.
Right. Yeah, there was one of the guys there. He told me, he said, I've kind of wondered about you the whole time I was in here. He said, here you are. Most of the time you come in here and said you're wearing a Jesus shirt. And he said, I'm thinking, this guy's got to be a plant. He's got to be something, you know. And he said, I got to watching you, and he said, I got to doing it. He said, man, I want what this guy's got. He said, I want some of what he's got. He said, and you know, before he left, we got to lead him to the Lord.
Oh, wow.
In the office there one night. So, and God started showing me that he was paying attention to me, I guess. I started praying for these guys by name, one by name, and go to the altar on Sunday. And I prayed for one of them, and that the Lord would reach down and touch him and save him. And Miss Carolyn called me, and she said, guess who got saved? I said, and then I could tell her who it was because I already knew what God had done. And so then the next time I done it, I picked her up. We was going to a Valentine bank, and she said, guess who got saved? I said, really? And so it happened three different times that I prayed for somebody that morning, and that night God saved somewhere else in a different church, a different situation altogether. But I guess he was trying to show me that he was using me and he was paying attention to what I was trying to do. So I still, right now today, I don't know what he's got planned for me. I don't know where I need to go from here, but you know, I'm still trying to tell the story of, you know, how great he is and miracles for my whole life. He built my whole life out of miracles. I've seen, I've looked death eye to eye a couple of times with him, and he's brought me through. I mean, you know, he's always been there for me. I ain't always been faithful, but he has.
It's obvious that on two different occasions he intervened in when you were trying to in your life. Right,
and a couple of times when I actually wasn't. I mean, I used to work for the highway department in Wynn and done a lot of work in West Memphis on the interstate, and I was out there in the middle of West Memphis Ford, in front of West Memphis Ford, right there in the middle lane of the interstate, and heard this racket or whatever, and I looked up above my head, and I seen this car flying over my head.
Oh, wow.
And it done turned around and landed in the concrete. When I finally got out of the way, everybody got out of the way, didn't nobody get hurt, but it landed in about 12 inches concrete where I was standing at. I was had a come along in my hand pulling concrete. About 12 inches of that come along was sticking out from the front of that car.
Oh, my goodness.
So he's always been with me a lot of times, and different. Now, I've been shot at and different things like that, too, and he's just, I mean, he's just been there, I guess, to keep me safe, to get me to this point, I guess, in life. I don't know. I don't know how much longer I got, but however long it's going to be, it's going to be with him. I know that.
Yeah. And so he's using you on, I know you go to the other CR meetings, but your church is hosting one on Friday nights.
Yeah, we have one on Friday nights. And, so I've kind of just sat back on that and let Gary and the ones that's been in there doing that, and I just kind of like going out and asking other people to come in and give their testimonies and stuff like that. So I feel like that's where God wants me to do, you know.
Yeah.
I go out and I listen to a lot of testimonies. I mean, it's, to me, a lot of the churches have gotten away from that, and they need to get back into it, because I think that's the way God talks to a lot of us, is through somebody else's story.
Right. And that's one reason I started this podcast.
Right.
Because I think the same thing, too. I think we can see who God is and what someone else has experienced. You know, they may not give the thought of the Lord, give any thought to the Lord until they hear what he's done in someone else's life. And it is a miracle when we're saved, because he's taken us from really death to life.
That's right.
And the old person to the new creation.
You know, I done a lot of drugs back in the younger age too. Don't talk a whole lot about that. I'd rather talk more about taking the cigarettes away from him since I've done it so much longer. But
Yeah.
He did take the alcohol and the weed and acid and cocaine and all this other stuff that I'd done. But it was like that wasn't the hardest part. I mean, a lot of people say, well, the alcohol is the hardest part. To me, the nicotine was the hardest thing that I had to give up. And I had to realize that I had to ask him for help to get rid of it. Because
You couldn't do it on your own.
the other part really wasn't hard. I mean, you know, at 24 years old, when I went to my knees, and like I said, and I was looking at that half-drank beer bottle sitting on that table, when I got up, I didn't need it anymore. I mean, it was done. But those cigarettes was completely different. I mean, I fought that fight a lot on my own, trying to quit.
Right.
I tried to, you know, the gums, the patches, and all this other stuff, and it just didn't work. And I was telling a young man the other day, he asked me in the recovery, he said, well, just how did you quit? I said, I just gave it to the Lord, and he took it. I said, then, you know, I didn't have no problem with it ever since then. I said, actually, I can go out and talk with somebody that's smoking a cigarette, and it don't even bother me no more. And I'm the person that said, ain't no way I can quit. Ain't no way I can quit. I said it 1,000 times, I know. And people I work with said, man, have you quit smoking? You know, quit smoking? I don't believe that. I said, well, I did.
Yeah.
I said, but God helped me with it because I couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah. So how do you see God using you? I know that you just spoke about that a little bit, but do you see yourself? I do know that in the CR meetings, it does mean a lot to those guys that are starting out, because a lot of those guys are in addiction recovery programs that go,
Right.
and they're within maybe a month or 11 months of being in that program. And I think it means so much to them to hear from those people that have walked down those same roads.
Right. Well, see, that's something that I couldn't do. I mean, I told Doug, I said, I don't know anything about these programs. You know, I never have been in one of them, you know. The only thing I know is if you give it to God, God can take care of it. I mean, you know. But he got to teasing me one day. He said about my shirts because I'm wearing a shirt. And he said, he said, let me ask you a question. He said, why do you wear those shirts all the time, Jesus shirts? I said, well, you know, the good Lord said that if you deny me before men, I'm going to deny you before the Father. I said, buddy, I ain't taking no chances. He said, do what? He started telling them guys at the recovery that. And a lot of them started wanting to get them shirts and things like this, you know. And I thought, well, you know, that's a good thing. And one day I was at the doctor's office, and this lady walked up to me, and she said, let me see what your shirt said. And she was trying to read it. She kind of stumbled and almost fell, and I kind of caught her. And she read it, and she said, I like that. So I sat back down. I said, thank you. And sat back down. She got ready to leave. She walks up, and she grabs me. She hugs my neck. She said, thank you for showing your faith on the outside as well as on the inside.
Yeah.
And that's something it hit me so hard, you know. I'm thinking, you know, maybe she's got a good point there, you know.
Yeah.
And I have people come up to me all the time and start talking to me about my shirts or whatever, and it gives you an opportunity to share what the Lord has done with you. And I've got more outspoken. I don't mind telling people what God's done from me.
Right.
Where I used to be kind of shy at it, and I wouldn't say anything, and now I could care less. I can tell you all about it.
Do you have anything else you want to share?
The only thing I want to share is, like I said, now I'm looking at 41 years. I've got 41 years of being clean off of drugs and alcohol. 6 years from nicotine, now going on 7. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. But the best thing you do is your best friend's got to be Jesus Christ. And you're going to have to put your faith and trust in him to ever walk away from what you can't handle, because he can handle anything that you can't.
Thank you for joining us today. New episodes release every Wednesday, so be sure to subscribe and get notified when a new episode is available. You can listen on the Journey to Salvation website, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. So, where are you on your journey to salvation?